Welcome into the Dirty O IDP Underdogs, hosted by the IDP Network. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. It's the end of the football season. We got a great Super Bowl matchup. We're going to talk about some of our favorite props. We're going to talk about some touchdowns, and we'll definitely have some fun talking a little bit about Travis Kelce and of course some Taylor Swift, right? So before we do that, make sure you check out our good friends at Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack has everything you need to bring your fantasy league to the next level. They've got championship trophies and rings. They've got wall art. They've even got gifts for last place finishers. Get your sweetheart something for Valentine's Day. Anything you possibly want. I got my own personal stuff right here. They got the wall art, which I got something ordered. And you can use promo code IDP guys at checkout to get a free championship ring with a purchase of a belt at trophysmack.com. That's code IDP guys at trophysmack.com. Now on to the show.
Right on, man. Yeah, let's dive into some Super Bowl prop bets. See if we can help make everybody some money this weekend.
Yeah, so everybody's talking about how many times they're going to show Taylor Swift on the screen. Let's talk about her man, Travis Kelce, the man that invented the fade. Over 6.5 receptions. They got it at minus 166. And I just took a peek over at the last time they played in the Super Bowl. And it was interesting because Tyreek Hill had 9 for 105. And Sammy Watkins had 5 for 98, the big Sammy Watkins game. And Travis Kelce only had 6. But Tyreek Hill's not playing. And of course, the legend Sammy Watkins is not playing. And so I got him at over 6.5. Patrick Mahomes, it's a different offense since Tyreek Hill's left. A lot more precision passing, a lot more dink and dunk, and a lot more Travis Kelce. He's been a volume play ever since Tyreek Hill left. And everyone that said Travis Kelce was old and Travis Kelce was about to retire, he's been absolutely on fire the last few weeks. And Travis Kelce is all about getting that ring. The Chiefs have peaked at the right time. And as good as the 49ers linebackers are, their safeties are banged up, and Travis Kelce is going to be a problem. Give me the over 6.5.
Easy money there. I like that one. Very nice there. I know it's like Travis Kelce, and he's just elevates to a different level when we get to the postseason. I mean, all throughout his career, it's just outstanding. For my first pick on the IDP side of the ball, I decided to go with Fred Warner over 4.5 solo tackles, which is at minus 150 against the Chiefs this week. He's just crushed us in every week so far in the postseason. I mean, it's not even close. He's had at least like 6+ solo tackles in each of the first couple of games. And Kansas City is likely to use a heavy rushing attack in this one, as they have, which has been successful for them for much of the postseason. Just for example, in the first three matchups to the postseason, they rushed for 34, 24, and 32 attempts in each of those first 3 games. So that right there just leaves an outstanding floor for San Francisco or opposing linebackers. You can almost bet that either one of them, that him and Dre Greenlaw are probably going to, I mean, that just kind of solidifies about a 5 tackle floor for either one of them. I mean, you split up the solos and assists however you can imagine. But as far as the postseason is considered, Fred Warner's been a solo tackle monster. So I think that at least with this, maybe I would give it like a 3 to 4 solo tackle floor. I think all he's got to do is just get a couple extra solos and we hit this pretty easily. So I really like Fred Warner at over 4.5 solo tackles at minus 150 this week.
Love it. Yeah. Warner's a madman. He's all over the field. Patrick Mahomes, they did him dirty with the the picture of the dad bod going on. And so this is the dad bod rushing prop, over 25.5 rushing yards. Mahomes, we talked about it every single week. They know when it's playoff time that, okay, Patrick, green light, you can go rush a little bit more. 49ers secondary is banged up. They're not very good. That's the weak part of this team. and they're going to have to do everything they can to protect that. And they're not going to be able to afford putting a spy out there on Mahomes. Look for Mahomes to rush the ball. We've seen in the playoffs just all these playoff performances from Patrick Mahomes have a signature play, and it's almost always a run. And so look for him over 25 and a half rushing yards. We saw it last year with a high ankle sprain. He went for over 50. So minus 125, easy money.
Very solid. Yeah, I know the last game he had over 40 on like 3 attempts. So I think he can easily get this in at least a couple of attempts, maybe even one if he can get some room, maybe the end of a quarter or something. So I really like that over 25 and a half.
Last time they played, he had in the Super Bowl, he had 9 for 29 and a touchdown.
Man, they just left the middle of the field wide open for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a solid play. Okay, so next on the IDP side, I like Nick Bolton over 2.5 assisted tackles. That's at minus 150 against the 49ers this week. Again, Nick Bolton's just crushed this in the postseason, with exception being last week against the Ravens, which we can attribute to Willie Gay being out for the week. In Willie Gay's absence, Nick Bolton had to step into that spy, more of a pass protection role versus a run stuffing tackling role, where Drew Tranquil really excelled at with 8 tackles, all of which were solo. But Nick Bolton throughout the postseason, and actually most of the season in general, he's not really just a high percentage solo tackler in general. He's just been more split up, on any given week. He's just kind of been about 50-50 more or less. I mean, any one week he might have a few less solo tackles. One week he might have, he might just excel and have a lot more solo tackles. But generally throughout the season, it's been pretty consistent at a good split. So I like this at 2.5 assisted tackles. I think this could be something that Nick Bolton could achieve by halftime. If the game script goes as planned, because I know that the 49ers are going to have to lean on the run game this week. And the run game, as I mentioned previously, and a lot of you IDP heads will know, it just lends well to a good tackling for opposing linebackers. And knowing that Nick Bolton is going to be most likely the run stuffer in this one, with Willie Gay probably returning, I really like Nick Bolton at over 2.5 assisted tackles this week.
Yeah, Bolton had the huge play last year at the end of the first half with the strip sack, scoop, and touchdown. Huge play. All right, what do we got next? We got Brock Purdy. Again, I love rushing props for these quarterbacks in these big games. And you get the big games, you're going to have the quarterbacks rushing more. We saw it with Purdy. I mean, it against the Lions, it was pretty impressive what he was able to do on the ground. And so over 3.5 rushing attempts, they're not going to want him to put the ball in harm's way. We saw it work in the Chiefs' favor last year. One turnover in the Super Bowl could be the end of your season. And so if they're going to tell him, don't risk it, tuck it and run. Over 3.5 rushing attempts, plus 124. You could also go with the 12.5 rushing yards, over 12.5 rushing yards. I'm good with either. This one just gave you some juice. The plus 124 is why I took it. So over 3.5 rushing attempts for Brock Purdy.
Very solid. Yeah, I know with the Chiefs secondary, they're going to be pretty locked down on these receivers for San Francisco. Not to say that they won't have any success in the passing game, but it's going to be tough. And instead of Brock Purdy making some questionable throws like he has so far in the postseason, I'm just like you. I think that coaches are going to be telling him, I'd rather you get 4 or 5 or even a first down, 4 or 5 yards, or even a first down on a rush, or, throw it away, something like that, rather than make a risky throw into some heavy coverage, much like we saw Lamar Jackson do in the conference championship. So, that if you're going to make a risky pass, the secondary is going to be looking to take it from you. So yeah, it makes sense that Brock Purdy would take some more rushing attempts in avoidance of an interception or a turnover in that sense. So I love that. My next play for the IDP side is going to be Chiefs safety Justin Reid under 6.5 tackles and assists at minus 135 against the 49ers this week. The 49ers have just not been generous to opposing defensive backs so far this year. And I mean, that's just throughout the year and the postseason, especially. Let's see. They haven't allowed a defensive back in general to get 7 total tackles since week 17 of the regular season. And that was Cameron Curl, who's, I mean, just a stud safety. I wouldn't even compare Justin Reid and Cameron Curl, especially, in the differing defensive schemes. Justin Reid just kind of takes a back seat. He's more of a specific role kind of player, just however they need him in the game script. However, it's running Spags just really knows how to utilize him, which is good in a general real life football defensive sense. But when you're talking about fantasy production, it just hasn't lent well to him so far this year. He's only hit this mark, 7 total tackles in 7 out of 20 games this year, and that's 35%. So I feel pretty confident in the under at 6.5 tackles plus assists at minus 135 this week.
Yeah, we got to get a couple unders on the board, so I like that. Speaking of unders, I got the under for Brandon Aiyuk. It's plus 135. Last week he had that one huge play that accounted for almost all of his yards, where he caught the ball off of the defender. I love Aiyuk. He's one of my favorite players, but this Ladarius Sneed has really become one of the best shutdown corners in the league. And again, they're not going to force it. If Aiyuk, if Aiyuk is catching the ball, they're going to have do everything they can to stop the big plays in this one. And the Chiefs have one of the best teams at stopping big, explosive plays through the air. And Ladarius Sneed is going to be, trailing him the entire game. So I just don't think Aiyuk is going to be the guy that does it. I think they're going to lean on other pieces. George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. I think it's a big Deebo Samuel game. And Aiyuk is, just going to have a rough one.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like you said, like we just kind of been alluding to so far all show, this Chiefs secondary is nothing to joke about. I mean, just wide receivers in general are going to have had trouble against them all season long, and Brandon Aiyuk is no exception. I mean, I think like you said, they're going to have to rely heavily on Kittle to pinpoint the weak points of this defense, and then some Deebo Samuel, who brings to the table a more diverse and that's pretty much what I'm looking for. A more diverse skill set, just someone who can run, who can take a rush for 15 or 20 yards and also catch some passes underneath the defense and just get a couple of first downs. And Aiyuk is more of like that big play kind of wide receiver, which the Chiefs really just haven't been allowing many big plays this year. I think Ladarius Sneed, if he's following him around, he's only allowed 1 touchdown all year. So I really like that under. My next pick for the IDP side is going to be 49ers cornerback Deommodore Lenoir over 3.5 solo tackles at minus 115 this week. If we know one thing about the Chiefs, we know that they're going to pass a ton. I know in the postseason they've relied heavily on the run, but Patrick Mahomes has thrown for 39, 23, and 41 attempts in the postseason, and that's just crazy opportunity for opposing cornerbacks. I mean, if you consider he completed 23, 17, and 30 of those attempts in each of those first 3 postseason games, that like I alluded to earlier, with rushing attempts being kind of a floor for linebacker tackles, passing completions is a good floor for cornerback tackles, and cornerbacks tend to have a much higher solo tackle rate, as they are the most often the nearest closest player to the ball. Whenever your wide receivers are catching it, there's normally not too many other players unless they're just in the middle of the field and people happen to be there. But Deommodore Lenoir has been the leading tackler this season, I think most likely due to offenses just kind of picking on him over Charvarius Ward. I think Charvarius Ward presents more of a more elite defensive back in terms of pure football, but when it comes to something like this, we want to pick on the cornerback, or we want to choose the cornerback who's been picked on all season, and that's Lenoir. So I think this week would be a good one for him. Let's see. The Chiefs have let 3 Dolphins cornerbacks, 1 Bills cornerback, and 1 Ravens cornerback so far this postseason to achieve this mark. So in every game so far in the postseason, they've allowed a cornerback to get this. I think Lenoir is going to be the most likely candidate, as again, like I mentioned, he's been picked on kind of all season, and he's been the leading tackler of this defensive back group. So I really like Deommodore Lenoir over 3.5 solo tackles this week.
Yeah, like you said, he's been picked on. Chiefs use the slot quite a bit, whether it's Kelce, Sky Moore is back, and then kind of a guy that's under the radar. Just not only did Sky Moore come off the IR, but so did Jerick McKinnon. And so we know the Chiefs like to use Jerick McKinnon in the passing game, also split him out wide. So that could be something to look at. My next is Christian McCaffrey, 2+ touchdowns. I don't see any way that they don't just continuously pound the rock with Christian McCaffrey. Again, we talked about Brock Purdy, and I'm a Purdy fan, and I do think that there's, we talk about the limitations. There's not any limitations or things like that. But at the end of the day, if you got Christian McCaffrey on your team, you're not going to be throwing the ball in the end zone. You're going to be giving it to Christian McCaffrey and giving this guy a shot at the end zone. This guy scores touchdowns more than anybody in the NFL. And so they, 2+ touchdowns, and this is, receiving plus passing. I think you easily are going to see him. The floor is going to be 1. It's whether he can get that second one or not. And they give you 210 odds to do it. Yeah, give me some of that.
I like that plus juice there. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey's had 2 touchdowns in each of the first couple of postseason games for them so far this year. So, and I mean, it's just undeniable. If they want to win this game, they're going to have to use Christian McCaffrey. If they don't get him involved, there's no winning this game. So I think, if there's anything inside the 10 or even in the red zone at all in general, he's going to be the main guy that's going to get the ball. They're going to be looking to him. He's matchup proofed. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of defense you got in front of him. The guy's going to figure out a way to make plays and a way to find the end zone. So solid big upside play with some, like you said, some plus juice there. My last pick is not quite as surefire, but it is a little bit more risky, kind of like you went with Christian McCaffrey. I'm going with 49ers defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw under half an assisted tackle at plus 100 this week. I know that's pretty risky considering all he has to do is get 1 assisted tackle to beat this mark. However, in the postseason so far, he doesn't even have an assisted tackle. The guy's playing 30% of snaps or less, which plays into our favor. He's looking at, I would guess, if you're estimating roughly a 60 snap game, he's looking at maybe 15 to 20 snaps max, and that's being generous. So I feel confident, considering he's got a high solo tackle rate in the postseason, that if he does get 1 or 2 tackles in this one, that they're probably going to be solo. So I kind of like this for a little bit of plus juice this week, and the floor or the ceiling for snaps, again, like I said, he's only played 30 to 35% of the snaps so far in the postseason. So there's just not a lot of opportunity for him to get this. So I like taking a little bit of a risk here at plus 100 for Javon Kinlaw to get under half an assisted tackle this week.
I like that.
So now that we've wrapped up our props for the week, well, I guess if you want to run through, give us kind of a little rundown real quick, we'll hop into our next.
Yeah, and don't go anywhere. We got some touchdown props we want to talk about, as well as some obscure props to discuss. So Travis Kelce over 6.5 receptions, Fred Warner over 4.5 solos, Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 rushing, Nick Bolton over 2.5 assisted tackles, Brock Purdy over 3.5 rushing attempts, Justin Reid under 6.5 tackles and assists, Brandon Aiyuk under 51.5 receiving yards, Deommodore Lenoir over 3.5 solo tackles, Christian McCaffrey 2+ TDs over, and then Javon Kinlaw under 0.5 assisted tackles plus 100. All right, so let's talk about some of the others. And before we do that, just remember 1-800-GAMBLER. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. And so if you guys don't know what an octopus is, that's when somebody scores a touchdown and scores a 2-point conversion. And so the odds right now on the octopus are plus 3,000 for them just to have an octopus in the game. Actually, sorry, 1,500. So you can take a bet on that, have some fun, and teach the people at the party little say, well, I know you know something that they don't know, and so an octopus is an odd thing to call for, and we saw it last year with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if there's a game to have one, that this game has a couple of pretty good candidates on either side of the ball for. Now, is it limited to just like anybody in general, or does it have to be one person to get the touchdown and get the 2-point conversion?
They have to get the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. So
Does it have
Jalen
to be the
Hurts had
same
the
person to get
yep,
both? Okay.
yep.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, you got Christian McCaffrey, who's pretty well going to be the surefire go-to for the 49ers, and Travis Kelce for the Chiefs,
Debo
and Andy.
Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great candidates in this one, so that's kind of a little fun little sprinkle of a bet you can put on for this week.
Yeah, and again, it's the Super Bowl is about the event, and you want to have as much fun as you can. So these are some fun ones. Another one is one that I never thought I'd ever talk about, which is a punt going to be longer than the longest touchdown. -200 for the punt, the first punt to be longer than the longest touchdown. If the longest touchdown is longer than the first punt, that's +155 odds. So you can take that. And then +3,000 for a tie if you're really feeling risky. And then I'm going to shout out to my guys over there at Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Higher than 4.5 planes on the flyover. From what I've heard, the details of the pilots have been released, and it sounds like there's 5 or 6 pilots, which means more than 4.5 planes. Take the over in that one. And let's talk about some touchdowns. So you can go a lot of different ways with this. You could go with first touchdown score. That's always an exciting thing, especially with the parties. And so, like you've all been there. Not everybody at the party is a football fan. You got those, percentage of people that are there just for the commercials. Some are there just to have some beers or the food. And people are talking about kids and politics and all sorts of stuff and distracting. So it may be a little harder to keep track of the receptions and the tackles and all that stuff. Touchdowns are pretty easy to track. So first touchdown score is a fun one because I think everyone's going to remember who scores the first touchdown, right? Mm-hmm. Christian McCaffrey +370. Isaiah Pacheco +650. Travis Kelce +700. Deebo Samuel +850. Rashee Rice +950. George Kittle +1,000. Brandon Aiyuk +1,100. Patrick Mahomes +2,500. That's got to be a rushing, not a passing, or rushing or receiving. Could see a Philly special. Brock Purdy +2,800. Kansas City D +3,500. Clyde Edwards-Helaire +3,500. Marquez Valdes-Scantling +3,500. Then you get a little deeper. San Francisco defense +3,500. So, thoughts there on what would be a safe bet for the first touchdown scorer?
I think you can't really go wrong with a Travis Kelce or Christian McCaffrey. I think that those seem like the two safest bets to me because, I mean, first of all, it makes sense that they would go running backs with the lowest odds on this one, mainly because I think Pacheco's probably been the first scorer for their team in general, just in the postseason. If they can really run the ball down your throat so far in the postseason, that's kind of been what they do, what they've been doing, and the way that Pacheco runs. Just it's like he's freaking pissed off every play, man. He just kind of has a nose for getting extra yards, and Andy Reid is creative enough to help him find the end zone when they get close enough. So he lets him, he rewards him for the hard work he does so far, at least in this postseason. I think he's got a touchdown, and I could be wrong, but I want to say every game so far, if not at least 2. So I mean. Pacheco could be a safe play. The running backs are, like I say, due to the odds, they're probably the safest. But as far as popular targets, Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce seem to be, to me, some of the safer targets here.
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey safe as it comes for the first touchdown, and this is first touchdown of the game, not for the Niners. This is for the game. You can take bets on for each team. That's going to lower your odds here because McCaffrey is probably negative odds for first touchdown for the 40. And then look at some of the the long shots. Is there someone that you think above 600 that you might be interested whether it's Debo or Rashee Rice or George Kittle, Mahomes, Aiyuk.
I kind of like, I mean, this is more of a preference for like an anytime touchdown. I really like Rashee Rice to just score in general in this one because this 49ers secondary is very vulnerable. And I think that Rashee Rice is going to have a bigger game, something more like the first week of the playoffs against the Miami Dolphins, where he had a touchdown and 130 yards. I'm not saying he's going to have quite that kind of game, but I think it's very likely he finds the end zone in this one. So why not the first touchdown of the game? Just go ahead and put some points on the board and get out ahead in this one. But I also feel like this is a game where Andy Reid's going to have to pull out some tips or some tricks. He's very notorious for pulling out some trick plays in the postseason, and I think like a Justin Watson and an MVS would be kind of a fun play this week because I feel like one of them is kind of due, like one of them or like a Kyle Goose. I forget how you pronounce his name.
Juszczyk.
Yeah. Like one of those guys would kind of be like something that the opposing defense wouldn't expect. And in the Super Bowl, we see that oftentimes. It's not uncommon to see some of these unconventional plays and guys that really don't get the ball all year long where they're targeted on the very first drive if they have the right opportunity. So any one of those three, like Rashee Rice, Watson, MVS, or Juszczyk, I like those. Who do you like for one of those long shots or even a surefire one maybe that we didn't mention?
Yeah, and kind of middle of the road. I get plus 950 for Rashee Rice, plus 1,000 for George Kittle. I like those. But Sky Moore and Jerick McKinnon were just activated off the IR. You get plus 4,000 for either of those guys. And Jerick McKinnon, they run him. They run a lot of different gadget stuff with him. He's their guy that does the wildcat. He's their screen guy. So I like Jerick McKinnon at plus 4,000 for the first TD if you're going to go with the long shot. So let's talk about some anytime touchdown. And that, again, anytime touchdown is receiving and rushing. McCaffrey's negative 235. Pacheco's negative 125. Kelce's negative 110. Then everybody else is plus odds. So you have Deebo Samuel plus 135. Rashee Rice plus 130. George Kittle plus 170. Brandon Aiyuk plus 170. Mahomes plus 425. Purdy plus 550. Chiefs D plus 600. And then you got plus 600 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, MVS. Then you got Jennings at plus 700. And then plus 600 also for the Niners D. So what are you thinking here as far as a safe bet for anytime TD, other than the ones we already mentioned?
I mean, let's see. I mean, Kelce is not bad for a sure. I mean, you can almost guarantee he's gonna score. So there's a little bit of making your money. But if we're talking about plus odds here, I like it. Like I just kind of alluded to, Rashee Rice seems like a good odds to me. I think George Kittle is going to be heavily utilized in this one. I feel like like I mentioned probably more at the beginning of the show, the Chiefs' weakness is likely in the rushing game with the obvious of Christian McCaffrey and then a little bit of Deebo Samuel. But they're not the greatest in defending opposing tight ends. Dalton Kincaid in the second week of the playoffs had himself quite the game. I'm almost certain maybe they didn't. I can't remember if Likely had scored. I don't think any of the Ravens tight ends scored against the Chiefs, but they still allowed for some pretty good games. And Kittle's unlike most tight ends in the league. He's just a lot different, and the team really knows how to use him in that way. And and the Chiefs linebackers just can't see. I mean, linebackers in general just really can't guard George Kittle. So I kind of like him for an anytime touchdown this week to exploit that Chiefs weakness. But then I wouldn't put it past Deebo Samuel to maybe get a 15-yard rushing score on one of the first few drives that the 49ers get. And if they can get to the red zone, I don't see why they couldn't put together a sneak little end around or something for him and maybe just get around the edge and punch one in.
Yeah, you stole one at the end there. Deebo Samuel, I definitely think that he's going to be involved in the rushing game. And, just utilizing him and like you said, on the edge or on a bubble screen, short, easy pop pass, something that's a high percentage play that they can get in there, low risk. And Deebo Samuel, talk about getting a nose for the end zone or nose for some extra yards. And I think Isaiah likely did score during that game. If not, he did have a better game because I remember Andrews came back. I bet
Mhm.
the lower, and Isaiah likely had a pretty good game. So let's look at some more long shots. What are you thinking for some anytime TDs? Some guys that are a little bit longer. Some guys that we mentioned or haven't mentioned yet.
I really like Justin Watson, honestly. In the postseason, it seems like the Chiefs really like to use him. I mean, for the most part, his role is just kind of strictly consisted of like just a couple of passes a game, just really important passes though, like passes where, like, I mean, where they might be up 3 points, they need a first down to keep the ball and avoid, having a punt or take less points just to kind of uh increase that time of possession and just kind of help control the game. They really like to use Watson in very important situations. So I wouldn't see why, especially with a vulnerable 49ers defense, why Watson couldn't maybe find himself a deep pass over the top of this defense for like a 35 yard score. I think that could be very possible. Like I said, for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you can almost bet on on at least one touchdown or a few big plays from guys that really just haven't popped during the season. I think last year, like you were kind of mentioning earlier with Sky Moore on his anytime touchdown odds, Sky Moore even scored last year, and he really hasn't had a great career at all so far in his first couple of years in the NFL. So, and Watson is just he's not really a heavily utilized guy, obviously, but he's an important guy. He's been a very important guy for this team the last few years in their postseason runs.
Yeah, he's plus 650. After him is Kadarius Toney at plus 750. Then Jerick McKinney at plus 750, and then Sky Moore at plus 950. And so I do like the Sky Moore call. Kadarius Toney's interesting. He also scored after then had the big punt return
Mhm.
last year. Plus 750. I think I also probably take a bet that Tony does something stupid. Whether it's a fumble or a penalty.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I love Jerick McKinnon this week, and so that
Mhm.
would be the guy that I think is someone that I go after. But Sky Moore plus 950 is interesting if you're looking to get a little extra juice. Guys that are in the 1,000 range are hard. McCall Hardman, Richie James, Charlie Warner, Ronnie Bell, Blake Bell, Jordan Mason. And without something happening to those main running backs, it's really hard for that to happen.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's what we got. And I do want to put you guys onto this. So, if you're looking to have one of those crazy crazy parlays, Christian McCaffrey is the top scorer with Jerick McKinnon and with Brock Purdy anytime touchdown. Christian McCaffrey first TD, Jerick McKinnon anytime TD was $10 bet would get me 2,310. If I go with Rashee Rice as the first score, Brock Purdy anytime TD, Jerick McKinnon $10 turns into $6,010. I know those are extremely unlikely, but if you're gonna get crazy, the Super Bowl is the time to do it. Those are some fun things to do.
Yeah. That's definitely not some bad ones to sprinkle a little money on. I mean, even if you said $10 turns to 2,000. Shoot, you could you could put $5 or 250 and still make several $100 on that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
still not
yeah.
break the bank. Still gamble within your means and just have kind of a fun little long shot bet. And I will throw out another one that I've kind of had my mind on. Uh, and that's I know I don't think DraftKings had it, but a L'Jarius Sneed anytime or just an interception. I think specifically they're going to put it like over half an interception. Of course, you can't get any less than half, or any less than a whole interception. So I think anywhere I was looking, it was like plus 550 or more. I really like that for this week. And like you said earlier, L'Jarius Sneed's just been a ball hawk this year. I mean, he's just been a lockdown corner, and it's almost inevitable with the kind of weapons that they have and the secondary that the Chiefs have, that L'Jarius Sneed is going to have several passes thrown his way. And Brock Purdy has thrown some questionable passes in this postseason. And I think in order to win this, he's probably going to put the game a little bit on his shoulders and probably make a couple of risky passes. I'm not going to say it's going to be a guaranteed turnover, but if anybody's going to catch the ball on a a miscued pass by Brock Purdy, it's probably going to be L'Jarius Sneed. Not to mention the narrative that he just had a baby this last weekend, so he's got a little bit extra to play for this week. If you like to add a little narrative to it, it's just kind of a fun little sprinkle. I know my dad had me personally when I went into the office this week. He had me place a little bet on L'Jarius Sneed interception. So that's just kind of a fun one to sprinkle a little bit of money on and get, I think, 6-1 odds. You can still make 6 times your money and just have a little bit extra to kind of watch the game for.
95% of public bets are on the higher than 0.5 interceptions for Brock Purdy. So a lot of people are pulling for a Purdy interception. So, well, good luck this week, everybody, and appreciate you checking in. Drop your questions. Let us know who you think is going to score the first touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Let's have some fun and bet smart, everybody. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.